Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of What's Going On in There. I'm Stephen Tomlinson with Level 7 Facility Services, and as always, I'm joined by my old buddy, Dave Hollister.
Hello.
Who, at this point, really needs no introduction, of course. He is the glue and the operational mastermind of our organization. I go around making unrealistic promises, and he sees to it that we actually keep them. He is taller and better organized than me. Better organized by a long shot, I should say. But I do have a little more hair than him. I'm the dreamer. He's the pragmatist. We make a damn fine team. And I'm lucky I get to call him my business partner. Dave, what's going on in your world today?
Not a whole lot. Thanks for the introduction.
Always. I'm asking you what's going on in your world as if we didn't just have coffee 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
But anyway, so also making his debut on the podcast today is a relatively new and very highly welcomed addition to our team, our Regional Business Development Manager, Sam Mitchell. We take a lot of pride in surrounding ourselves with people who are smarter than us, which isn't
I don't know about that.
which is not that hard to do. But Sam is certainly a testament to that. And in a very short time, Sam has come in and totally revamped and drastically improved our BD processes pretty much single-handedly and brought us into the 21st century, I should say. With
You don't want to go backwards. So.
Yeah, no, you don't. You don't. We've tried. And let's see, what else has Sam done? So Sam has actually brought us up into the 21st century with systematic structure that's been a departure from the way that we've done things previously, which used to basically amount to, I don't know, just go sell something. Sam grew up in Conyers and currently lives with his lovely wife and daughter in the Canton area, right?
That's it.
And he brings a ton of sales experience, sharp business acumen, and a boatload of likability, too. So, Sam, thank you for coming to join us. We're very happy to have you here, sir.
Absolutely.
So, as I mentioned, Dave and Sam and I are with Level 7 Facility Services, and what we do on this podcast is we take a peek behind the curtain of some of Atlanta's many intriguing organizations, and we speak to business leaders from around the metro area to hear all about their origins, what's important to them, and to the organizations they work with, where it is that they're heading next, their victories, challenges, and lessons learned along the way. So, Sam, how are you, sir?
I'm excellent. I'm doing great.
You know how you're driving down the road sometimes, and maybe you drive past some crazy, impressive-looking structure, and you find yourself wondering, what is that place? And what in the world do they do? What's going on in there? So it is that very curiosity that fuels the premise of this show and gives us the excuse to sit down with fine folks like our guests today and hear about what makes their organizations unique. So without further ado, we are very fortunate to be joined today by two friends of ours who both have interesting stories to tell, and we look forward to finding out more about you guys and your organizations. We'll start with Jamie Hamilton, who is the Executive Director at the Special Needs Schools of Gwinnett and is very involved in the Gwinnett community, as many of our listeners already know. Jamie graduated from Penn State with a degree in golf management, and prior to his current role, as you might expect from the title of his degree, he worked in various roles in the world of golf and hospitality, most notably at the Greenbrier outside of Lewisburg, West Virginia, correct?
Yes.
Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. And also joining us via Zoom, we can see you, Darrin. I'm not sure how well you can see us. We have Hey, good. So we have Darrin Flanagan, who is the owner of Launch and Go Workspace, a premier co-working space with locations in Norcross and Peachtree City. Darrin graduated from Florida State with a degree in supervision and management. And as you can see, Darrin, we do a little bit of show prep. A little bit, not much. But
I appreciate that.
He is also the co-host of the Beer and Business podcast, which is probably actually informative and entertaining, something we know very little about here. Darrin, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us.
Thanks for having me on the show.
So we can just kind of start with you, Darrin. Can you give us a little bit of a background, kind of, give us your career path, how you wound up where you are in your current role and your origins and all that good stuff?
Oh, man. My career path. Well, at my age, it could, really long. So, but I will say I've started as an entrepreneur when I was 16 years old. I had my first business back then. owned a couple businesses here and there, learned quite a few things, went into the corporate world for a while, but I always had there's always that scratch in the back of your head, or my, like a big thump, like somebody smacking you with a sledgehammer that said, this isn't you, this isn't where you want to be. You're shifting energy too much, even though you enjoy what you're doing, but you got to go run your own business. Mm-hmm. And so I had made a decision at one point to, long and short of it, I was leaving the company that I was with. I gave them a 2 months notice so I could help prepare the next candidate and get them onboarded correctly. But I had a long list of a bunch of things that I wanted to do. And it's like, I just didn't have the time to get to them. Like, I want to start this business idea. I want to pursue this thing. And so I made it possible. A week, I would say, a few days before I was quitting my job or leaving my job, I was at a networking event and somebody said, hey, you should come to this thing that's next week. It's at a co-working office over in Noonan, Georgia, a couple towns over. And I'm like, cool. Co-working office. I know about this. We all have weird hobbies. We geek out on certain things, and mine was following co-working offices. Wow. Exciting conversations, I know. I think I'd rather talk about the different types of paint coatings than that. It's like, eggshell versus flat versus whatever. But it just, all of a sudden, I had this light bulb moment. Could Peachtree City use a co-working office? And that idea went on my list of things to do, and not only did it go there, it moved to the top extremely quickly. I dove in, did my market research, saw that there was a demand, but it was, how can I separate my space from an executive office suite type place, or this other spot that's kind of sort of doing this. And actually the idea that I had fit in really well. I didn't have to tweak it too much. And so,
what year was this when you were in the formative stages?
God, this is 98.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm sorry. Wait, not 98. Sorry. I'm in the wrong decade. And I haven't even started drinking yet today. Holy crap.
Hey, I was in the wrong century earlier, so you're fine.
That happens later on our podcast. It was 2018.
Okay.
And so that was like November, the end of November, beginning of December, and all of a sudden it just, within 6 months, I had signed a lease and was open in August of like that following year, or that year. So wow. I've had it for 3.5 years. The one in Peachtree City. I met my business partner, my current business partner, actually went to do some consulting work because she was interested in the co-working industry and offices and wanted to know more about it. So somebody introduced us, and started walking some of her spaces and putting together projections and everything else. And she's like, why don't we just partner up and do this?
Yeah.
And so lo and behold, we just opened one up in Norcross within this past month.
Oh, wow.
And then in the next month or so, we're going to be opening up in College Park.
Fantastic.
So we'll have another one there. And then she hit me with, well, maybe we could open up 2 or 3 more by the end of the year. So I'm like, well, all right.
Well, you must be doing well with them then. I guess you're seeing a lot of demand for it, huh?
There is a huge demand in the market, and it's a matter of doing it right and making sure that it's that you bring it, stay profitable. The saying is, we've all seen the movie, or most people have seen the movie Field of Dreams. Mm-hmm. So if you build it, they will come, is the philosophy. But I always say, if you build it and you build it right, then they'll stay.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you want. You don't want them just to show up and leave. You want them, oh, wow, I like this. I like the energy. I like the feel. I like, what's going on here. And I always say, I can't take credit for the community that's been formed in my co-working office, the members do that themselves. They're the ones who really create the energy. They create the camaraderie. I just facilitated a space for them to do it in.
Yeah. What would you say is kind of your defining, what is it that sets you guys apart from other co-working spaces? Was there something, an idea that you had in mind as far as you referred to energy and feel? Like,
I mean, I provide 100% sarcasm every day. I think people really enjoy that.
That's huge. Yeah, that's important.
It brings it back. No, I would say it's a comfortable professional space.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a variety of things. You can work out in the open, you can work in private offices, but I try to make people feel at home as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So even the setups with the couches and the chairs, I'll tell folks, I'm like, if you're, how do you work at home? And they're like, do you sit up on the couch with your feet on the couch and your laptop in your lap? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, you can do that here. Just take your shoes off. And so I remember watching one person one day, and they were kind of lying on the couch, sitting on it, angled, and not quite sure if they could actually do it. And about 20 minutes later, they took their shoes off and they had their feet up on the couch. And it's, you put coffee tables to put your feet on a coffee table too. So it's like, this is comfortable for you folks. And that's all, make them feel warm and welcome as quickly as possible. Most people don't get, when they're coming in for a tour or something and I'm giving them the rundown, I'm like, you get free high-speed Wi-Fi, you get 24/7 access, coffee, tea, and water, and then I always throw out, and the toilet paper is free. And that one just sails over their heads. And I'm like, it's got to be my delivery of the joke, because I think you guys laughed, so it's got to be a funny one.
One. Well, let me back up a little bit. So, did you originally come from Florida? Did you grow up in Florida?
No. Well, I was born in Alabama, but I lived there for only 6 months. And then I grew up in Syracuse, New York. But being born in Alabama gives me rights to live below the Mason-Dixon.
Yeah, we got two Yankee guests on today.
There you go. But I used to, when I went to Florida State, and I've never moved. I've stayed in the South ever since.
What brought you to Atlanta originally?
Well, I mean, I had to escape the warrants that I had against me in Florida. No, I'm kidding.
Understood.
No, actually, I used to work for a couple of different lotteries. So I worked for the Florida Lottery, and then took a job with the Georgia Lottery. So that moved me up to the Atlanta area.
Cool.
And that was it. So
this may seem like a silly question, and I wanted to ask you that when you were working for the lottery. Can employees, in fact, play the lottery if you work for the lottery?
No, you cannot.
Bummer.
No, cannot. Not that there's any insight. It's like they don't have any inside tips.
Sure, you don't have to sell us on it. It's okay. It's fine.
So
ping pong balls.
Hey,
right?
Trust me. If I knew that stuff, do you really think I'd own a coworking
institution? Right.
Or would you, as a front, maybe?
Touché.
There you go.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think my accountant would disagree with you on that one. You sure you should be funneling more money through this operation? But no.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jamie, let's hear a little bit about what you've got a lot going on. You and I had lunch a couple weeks ago, and it was really interesting to hear some of your story. And coming from the world of golf management into now running a school. Can you kind of walk us through that path?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. One I couldn't have predicted, but I'm really glad it worked out that way. But yeah, as you said, I came from the world of golf, and so people are probably wondering, professional golf management, what kind of degree is that? What do you do? It's a real thing. There's about 15 schools that offer it. It's basically a business degree with an emphasis on sports, recreation, and it pulls all of the PGA of America's certification work into it. So it's actually a really busy 4+ years. You're doing 15 months of internship along the way, so you sort of start and don't get a break until you graduate from college, and then you, of course, jump into the workforce. So, yeah, I went through that. I got in as an assistant professional, worked at a private club in Southampton, New York, seasonally. So for 5 years in the summers, I worked in New York. Then I packed up and moved to Florida, a little further south in Jupiter, Florida. So followed the warm weather, the golfers, and the money around for about 5 years.
Tiger sounds place.
Yeah, we were a little down the road from Tiger, and so yeah, that was a great way to sort of spend my early and mid 20s, and then picked up and relocated to the middle of nowhere in West Virginia. Had the opportunity to become a head golf professional at the Greenbrier Resort and did that for about 9 years. And so yeah, I've gotten to do some really unique and lucky things and get to spend time around some of the greats in the game and some of the great clubs and resorts in the game. So I've been spoiled to death in that regard. And loved it. You know, it was something I thought I was going to do the rest of my career. But that business, hospitality in general, golf specifically, it just asks so much of you. And, you know, when you're 22 and don't own anything and don't have anyone to answer to, you can drive all over the place and work 7 days a week and, you know, work Christmas Day and weekends. And
hopefully get to play some golf sometimes,
yeah,
too.
you occasionally sneak around in far less than you might think or want. But, you know, as you get older and have a family and those dynamics kind of change, you know, the balance of sort of work and personal life just sort of got a little out of whack for me. And about that time, still living in West Virginia, had the opportunity to transition over. We had some folks and some friends that I knew had just started a nonprofit organization. They were trying to build an aquatic-based wellness facility, a aquatic center there in the area. I was a swimmer growing up, so it sort of resonated with me, and they needed somebody to come on and take charge of about a $6 million capital campaign. And so in the span of about a month, I went from like, I don't know that someone with my background can do this, to suddenly, oh my God, I'm doing this. And so, yeah, made that transition at the beginning of 2019. And one of the great opportunities and great changes in my life, it took me down a completely different path. And we were really blessed and successful to raise that money. And that facility actually opened about a month ago.
Oh, wow.
So
it's the Greenbrier Aquatic Center?
Yeah, it's called the Greenbrier Valley Aquatic Center. So it's in Lewisburg. It's about a 25,000 square foot 3-pool facility. So really something that area has needed and wanted for a very long time. We were really lucky to build it with all donor funds, no debt. It's off and running and doing great. You know, so really, really cool project, and something that just sort of resonated with me is, hey, maybe there are other paths and things, and if you have a skill set of service and working with people and creating experiences, you know, you can take that more places than I think we kind of give credit to, or at least I did. So, you know, along the way, my wife, Ashley, gets an opportunity to take a really great job opportunity down here in Atlanta, and I somehow convinced the folks I'm working for that I can move to Atlanta but still raise money for them in West Virginia. So we made that move late in 2019, and so I was doing back and forth about 5 or 6 months, and along the way got to meet the board president for the special needs schools, and a gentleman that I had known slightly through golf but not very well, and we had lunch one day, and I sort of, you know, he said, well, what have you been doing since golf? And I told him the story of community engagement and fundraising and advocacy and all the things that I was doing there, and he just sort of stopped and said, there's this school that I'm involved in, and we need someone like you to come work and tell our story. And so, yeah, just, you know, the crazy twists and turns that life takes you, and it just puts you in the right place at the right time. And I've been really lucky for that to happen a couple times in my life. So I'd love to tell you I play a lot more golf now than I used to. That's not always the case. It's kind of hit and miss. But no, I'm super lucky to do it. It's a great school. The kids are awesome. It's 35 years old. There's been awesome things happening there for decades. I'm just the guy that gets to go out and tell the story and make sure people know about it. And for a lot of folks, the last year or two is the first time they're hearing about us. We've maybe been right around the corner or in their backyard the whole time. They just don't know it's there. And so it's rewarding to get to tell that story and open up some eyes and some minds. And there's a lot of folks out there that, you know, might have a family member, or this is something that they're looking for as a potential student, or others that, you know, it touches a place in their heart and they want to support, and they never knew it was their support. So
I think that's a testament to you doing a great job getting the word out there, and you know, and promoting the school. And you guys are going through a lot of growth right now too, right?
Yeah, it's been a busy couple of years. So we right as I was coming on, so my first day was April 1st of 2020. So I literally agreed to the job at the beginning of March. New to Gwinnett, new to Georgia, new to the school. You're here to create awareness and raise money. Oh, by the way, the world's going to shut down.
Yeah.
So that was a unique way to start it. And I'm still kind of not sure how that all worked out, but it did. And yeah, I think so the way our school operates is 10 students per classroom. It's very much a one-on-one approach to education. Folks in the world of special education know that you can't have 30 kids in a classroom and present like you would a traditional room and expect for everyone in that room to really identify with what's going on and grow and learn. And, academics are the gateway for emotional development, social development, all the other things. Well, when the world shut down and, school became remote, or maybe mom and dad had to become the teacher or the Zoom facilitator, I think a lot of parents learned maybe their kids were maybe just getting by before, not really thriving, sort of, they were presented with some realities that maybe, from a distance they really didn't know beforehand. And in the world of special education, that's amplified tenfold. So that summer when Gwinnett County Public Schools said, you know what, we're going to pause on bringing everybody back in the fall. And instead of August, maybe it's September, we don't really know yet. Literally that next day, our phones rang off the hook. We had just opened a new school building. We had about 25 new enrollment opportunities, and within about 3 days, they were all gone.
Wow.
And so I think a lot of schools, private schools or non-traditional schools would tell you a lot more people are aware of educational choice and, for whatever that means for that family. They're aware there's other places out there, and maybe they're realizing there's a better fit. No knock on public schools. Gwinnett County Public Schools does an exceptional job. We serve 70 students. They serve 185,070 students. There's always going to be some students that, despite your best efforts, just not the right fit for.
Right.
And we've been really lucky that a lot of those families have found their way to S&S, and we've been running full capacity for 2 years, and the wait list grows by the day, and we're working hard to try to fix that and add on and build more classrooms and be able to serve more folks.
That's awesome.
That's great.
You guys are a nonprofit, right? Yeah.
We are, yeah. I would say we're a nonprofit private school, not the other way around.
Right.
Private school brings with it some assumptions of wealth and endowments, and some schools in Atlanta have that luxury. We are not one of those. We serve families, many of them with financial challenges. So everything we do is invested back into those students and those families, and so the nonprofit comes before the private in that sense.
And the fundraising piece of it is a big part of your role too, correct? And I definitely want to jump into how people can be supportive.
Yeah, so really for the first year, that was my exclusive role. My title was Director of Community and Donor Engagement for the first year, and all I did was fundraising. Now I'm the Executive Director. That's still a big part of what I do. I'm trying to help with some other things, but yeah, I say the tuition at our school keeps the lights on. Everything else is what allows us to do it bigger, better, faster, create more impact, serve more students. And yeah, we have a lot of different ways we try to do that. And whether it's investing in classrooms and giving the students more resources, obviously, taking better care of our teachers, giving them the things that they need, both in the classroom and for themselves personally to find this a rewarding and fulfilling, line of work. And then a big thing for us is scholarships too. Again, a lot of the families come to us with the assumption that private school is not something that could ever be attainable for them, and we're there to sort of show them that it is, and we're there to help. And it takes a lot of money, but when you can break that barrier down for a family that so desperately needs it, it's about the most rewarding thing you could ever ask for.
I can imagine. Yep, I can imagine that's true. Darrin, I want to circle back to you. So it sounds like you've had an interesting career path that led you to entrepreneurship and taking some risks. What career advice would you go back and give yourself 20 years ago?
Don't do it. No. I should get back into it sooner. I mean, there's a lot of good lessons. The one that I usually, when people ask me on a serious note, is, pay attention to the finances a lot more, especially with partners when you have other people involved. I learned that at an early age in my 20s when I had a business with a partner, and we were out bidding a job, and I'm like, we need this equipment. It shouldn't be a problem. We'll have the money in the bank. And he was hemming and hawing about it, and finally one day he confessed. I'm like, let me see it. He goes, I've spent it all. I'm like, oh, so above the salaries that we allowed ourselves, he basically thought it was his own bank account, and he blew every dime that we had.
Oops.
Yeah, pay attention to the finances. Don't trust it. You want to trust people, even if they're your best friend, but business is business, and keep it that way.
Trust but verify, right? Trust but verify, yeah.
Exactly it. So, the other thing is it's okay to put bourbon in your coffee in the morning. I should have learned that a long time ago.
Makes the days go better.
Yeah, that's the advice that I give myself.
No, that it sounds like sound advice. I mean, we having bootstrapped businesses, and tried to figure out in the early years, like Dave and I could sit here and commiserate all day long, like having to rob Peter and pay Paul to make it work. And it's like one day you get at the promised land, and hopefully there's there's enough to make sure all the bills are paid, but it's not a guarantee at the onset. That's for sure. How about you, Jamie? If you look back, what career advice would you give yourself?
Yeah, I think as a young person, myself and a lot of folks are so focused on the technical things of their job. You need to know those things, but the relationships, the people you work with, those are what's most impactful. Every opportunity I've had in my life, it's not because I've done a really great technical job at at whatever it is that I was doing. It's because I made an impression upon someone. They thought highly enough of me to put me in touch with someone or make that connection. And some of those touch points were, I look back and there weren't significant moments. You sort of never know when someone's going to take notice of what you're doing, and so sort of work hard even if you don't think anybody's watching you, because you never know when that moment is going to become something much more profound, or where it's going to lead to down the road. And so just know what you're doing technically, but don't forget about the people side of it, because that's the more important side in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just funny, we were just talking about that over coffee today, how there was a story that somebody was telling Dave about what was it? It was a drummer, right? And
he was a drummer, and he was leaving a gig, and somebody came out, and wanted his autograph, and he gave his autograph, and he was late getting on the bus, and he ended up wanting him to introduce him to somebody else and get his name out in the music world. And he's like, well, I can't do that without hearing your music first. I'm really late. I got to go. Here's my card. It's got my home address, home phone number. Send it to me. I'll take a look. I'll see what I can do. And nothing really came of it. But 2 years later, he gets a call from this guy and says, hey, I've got this woman who's starting a band. I'd love for you to come and try out for the band. It happened to be Cyndi Lauper. And so he was able to become Cyndi Lauper's drummer, and, because he was looking out and being nice. He could have just played the rock star and just gotten off and got on the bus and say, I don't have time for you, and that wouldn't have happened. It's just kind of the right place, right time, like you were saying before.
Yep.
Yeah, and people want to do business with people. It's all about relationships, and I know that's one of Sam's strengths. He's never met a stranger, and people take to him, and he makes friends very quickly. But I mean, that's what it boils down to. I think that's great advice. So we're big on company values, and we try to preach our values and live our values and make sure that everybody knows what we're all about as an organization. What are the most important values in your organization, in your mind, that you want everybody to know that special needs schools are all about?
Yeah, I think in our school, we're focusing. We have kids with all sorts of challenges in their lives and backgrounds. We're there to focus on what you can do. These kids almost universally come to us, and their entire life but the point of focus is what's different, what's wrong, what you can't, what you shouldn't. It's always sort of the glass half empty kind of a mindset, and we're big on breaking that down. Let's those are all elements we're going to be aware of, but let's focus on what you can do. Let's celebrate those victories. So it's a very optimistic way of sort of going in every day. And I think we all fall victim to the focus on the negatives and harp on the stuff that we want to fix and don't acknowledge the things we're doing really well at. So I know that's sort of impressed itself upon me a lot, both professionally and in my personal life, is just look at things a little bit more optimistically, look at the bright side of things, what you can do. Concentrate
on the opportunities.
Yeah, right. Just to kind of, it's a more refreshing way to kind of live your life and go about your day. Sure. And so I think it starts with the students, but it bleeds into everything that we do.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's cool. Not a glass half full or half empty. I'm just happy I have the glass.
Yeah, amen to that.
Darrin, other than exceptional sarcasm, I've heard it said that every startup has to be built on a solid foundation of company values, and you kind of have to really know who you are before you even set out there. And what are some of those values that you guys hold dear?
Make sure you have a comfortable pillow in the corner for when you cry yourself to sleep at night. No. and wear a big cup because you're going to get kicked a lot. As far as values, I mean, I would say it's the platinum rule. You don't treat people the way you want to be treated. You treat people the way they want to be treated. So listen to them, pay attention to them, pay attention to their actions, because not everybody will tell you verbally, but they'll tell you through their actions. And to make people, they are who they are, and you can't look into somebody's mind. So it's like, treat them better than you would treat yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And fulfill their need. And you may not be able to anticipate their needs, but if you can at least meet them where they are and what they're looking for, boy, you'll get a lot further every day. And so that's been a huge value that we've learned throughout this business. I learned it a long time ago and preach it all the time, even when I was just by myself running. It's like, I'm my own employee. I don't know how many times I've fired myself or put myself on a performance plan. It's like, hey, you got 90 days to fix this. And it's like, oh, I'm having this meeting again. But, that's probably the one value that sticks out more than anything else.
Well, and it sounds like you guys have got some pretty aggressive growth plans. When you look out into the future, let's say 5 or 10 years down the road, where do you see Launch and Go? It will... Well, one, be ready, because we've got a company name change coming. Okay. For all the offices going forward, we had to work through a couple things and establish that. So if you're looking for Launch and Go, you're going to see all the new offices coming out as WP Workspace or WP Workspaces. So, but 5 to 10 years from now, is this the first announcement?
It's it's official. We were talking about it this morning.
All right, there you go. There you go.
Is it official? So yes, that's out there. So 5 to 10 years. I mean, hiring the people to run these spaces, each co-working office, they call them a community manager. For a reason. They're as I said before, it's a community. Having 5 to 10 years from now, having all those people in place, so I can work from wherever. If I want to be skiing for a few weeks to a month, or hiking or backpacking or wherever, all I need is this, a laptop and a cell phone, and I've got the people in place to run the businesses, and then I can just come into town when I need to and tour, make sure everything's running the way they're supposed to, and move on out.
That's the modern day American dream.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. So we've already put a lot of things in place to do that. I think the office down here in Peachtree City, it really does run itself, and I can do a lot by the phone and or by the laptop. So having to leave to go up to Norcross to work on that one, or go to College Park, I'm not like full of anxiety and like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen if I'm not there today?
Right.
Not like back in the beginning when it was like, I'm going to run out and get lunch. I'll be back in 15 minutes, right. And kind of freaking out that somebody would come in when I wasn't there, and it's just like, no, they'll call me.
Well,
they'll call me.
That's the the big secret, if you can figure it out, is surrounding yourself with people who are better at their jobs than you would be in that role. And it's tough. Yeah. It's really tough to do these days. How are you guys finding good people?
It's obviously there's the employment websites, the big ones with the names. We've been using Indeed and gone through a bunch of candidates. Kind of funny, because people are like, they're applying, we've scheduled a bunch of interviews with people, and then they just don't show up. It's like, ooh, are you guys experiencing that too?
Yes.
Yes,
we are.
It's like, so, but actually we found somebody about a week or so ago through an interview. I think she's going to be like gangbusters. So called her today, made her the offer, sent her the letter. So hopefully she'll say yes.
That's great.
I think she'll do a stellar job. So,
do you think you'll stay focused in the kind of Metro Atlanta area for an extended period of time? Are you thinking about expansions anytime soon, or?
Oh boy, don't you think Atlanta's enough?
Yeah, that's how we look at it too.
If I get 10 offices open in 2 years, and I still have, if it still stays white on top of my head and doesn't fall out, then I'm good. If I start losing the hair, then I'm going to have problems. But I don't know where we'll go from there.
Yeah.
It depends who comes and presents themselves. There's in the market, there's demand for it, but I also know that there's a lot of people getting into this,
right?
Have been getting into this industry that will probably, leave it because it's not as easy. I think there's also some, we'll say, other business models out there that are taking advantage of these people who want to get into the co-working industry, and I don't think they're going to find it to be as profitable as they had hoped by that business model that was established. So it's always been brought up to talk about franchising or doing something like that, which scares the living daylights out of me at times. But my business partner thinks that there may be something there, so slowly we'll explore that. So if it comes to expansion, it may happen in the form of in that model.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a long damn answer. I'm sorry.
No, well that's what we're here for. We like those. Jamie, you guys running into staffing issues, or we all are.
Yeah, no, I think everyone who employs people, it's an issue, and it's sort of a catch-all is where we find folks. I think teachers in general, particularly special education teachers, it's a calling. So we have people that maybe are generally aware of us, and when an opportunity comes around, they've maybe been feeling that pull for a while, and maybe we're that thing. I can tell you historically, no one has worked at our school for their own financial rewards. So that we're sort of playing catch up on that front and trying to take better care of people, because we know is just the way the world works. And as we're talking about expanding, we got to keep taking better care of people, making it a more attractive place to work, so that when we open a new building and need 15 more people, that we'll find those folks. So it's kind of a balancing act, but the last couple of years have been challenging, but we've been lucky. We've had a lot of folks that have been there for decades, and literally dedicated most of their lives to serving at that school. And when we find a really good employee, they tend to be there for a long time because that connection is so strong. That they understand the impact they're making on some really awesome kids, and we try to make sure we give them what they need to stick around and keep doing that.
Are most of the kids that attend the school Gwinnett residents, or they come from further out? Yeah,
it's mostly Gwinnett. I think it's probably about 75-80% of the students are Gwinnett based. But we, any given year might have between about 5 and 7 counties represented. So sort of Gwinnett and every county that surrounds us, and maybe an outlier here or there. Usually it's because mom or dad or a family member works here around in Gwinnett or locally, so it's not that inconvenient. And then you've got some folks that just particularly some of the more rural counties where there's just very few options.
Right.
They've exhausted all of them, and none of them worked. And if it means an hour and a half drive, that's what it means. And so I think some people have come to us, we'll try this out. It's not the closest thing in the world, and 12, 15 years later, they're still there. We've had families that have moved away and then have made that, the daily trip back from 2 hours away because, it's that important in their lives. We even had, I think it was this year, a family who was going to pull their student out and go. They were moving and going to do something, and one of the therapists said, well, I don't know what's been different in that child's life the last 6 months, but don't change it, because the progression they've made has been so profound. And like, well, she's in a new school. It's like, do not change that dynamic.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, even if it's not the most convenient, and parents are bringing, or someone's bringing them to school, we're not offering school buses and picking them up and dropping them off. So it is an extra added responsibility on the families, but most of them see the value and see the impact in it.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, we like to have a little bit of fun with this program when we can, and not keep it all strictly business. And I've personally been on a mission to find the best barbecue in Atlanta in the last month or two, and I'm just kind of. I mean, I've lived in Atlanta longer than anywhere else in my life now. I'm kind of a transplant. I guess I grew up in South Georgia, but you guys came from a long way away, and I know that barbecue is mostly a southern phenomenon, but who doesn't love barbecue? And so if you don't have particularly a barbecue recommendation, what are some restaurants? But I'm going to ask barbecue specifically, and then otherwise, what are some restaurants you'd recommend to our listeners? Darrin, you want to take that one first?
Well, you want to know about barbecue.
Yes, I do.
If you're ever up in Syracuse, New York, go to Dinosaur Barbecue.
Dinosaur Barbecue in Syracuse.
It's a hell of a place, and it is probably, if you go into Publix or somewhere and look on the barbecue shelf, they're down at the bottom, you may find that, but it's a heck of a place. You walk up to there's always motorcycles are only allowed to park in the front. Everybody else parks everywhere else.
A biker barbecue joint? That sounds compelling.
That's how it started. Yeah, and it's a huge, there's always a line out the door, but it's one of those where the waitress says, "I'll be back in a minute. If you don't know what you're having, you're going to have to wait." And they walk up and they're like, you order when he or she are there, and if you're like, they're like, "Sorry, I'll get you next time I come around." And it's kind of their theme, but their barbecue is delicious.
What about Peachtree City has to have? I don't think I've ever had barbecue in that part of the world, but it's got to be something.
Off of my grill.
Putting you on the spot. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, the co-host of the podcast will argue. He'll say his grill because he's got that green egg. So he's like,
"Oh yeah."
No, I don't know. I haven't found any tip-top barbecue down here. There's a good sauce. There's a company called Stucky Sauce, and they call it gourmet sauce. Have you had their stuff? Mm-hmm. So, oh my God, the cranberry, and we actually had them on the podcast. So I would say if you're going to do barbecue, try the Stucky sauces.
All right, there you go. Jamie, do you have anything to contribute to this conversation?
Yeah, not much other than, obviously we've been here for 2.5 years, which has not been the ideal 2.5 years to be new anywhere. Right. So we're playing catch up on sort of being locals. So I'm intently listening to this conversation to figure out where I need to go. I enjoy barbecue. It's oddly enough I have gotten into the world of enjoying collard greens, which was not something that I ever ate. So now that's sort of my litmus test as to whether or not someone knows what they're doing is the quality of that.
Yeah.
So I found some that are pretty good and others that, probably straight out of a can or something along those lines. But I'm one of those people that's fallen into the big green egg trap as well. So I've got that on the back porch and I'm slowly kind of working my way through the progression of learning that. So I wouldn't call it restaurant quality barbecue yet, but we're working on that.
There you go. Yeah. Well, Dave and I are also aficionados. I think, Dave, you probably get more of green egg time in than I do. But
you can probably tell by looking at us.
Well, Fat Matt's Rib Shack's been around a million years, and if you hadn't been there, that's a winner. Community Q in Decatur, I think, has the best barbecue sides. And I hadn't. Well, I've only been there a couple of times, but I was blown away by their sides. And I'm with you. Like sides, that says a lot about a place to me. But I'm looking for brisket particularly. I've had some really, really good brisket in Austin, which you would expect in a Texas place, but. And I'm like, there's got to be a place in Atlanta that can do it that good. So I'm on a mission. But anyway, let's see what else. Are we running out of time here? Yeah. Okay. Mike's getting ready to start throwing things at us. Okay. Well, go ahead, Dave.
I've got to know, Darrin. Give me a beer. Are you an IPA guy? Or are you?
Yeah. I'm all over the board except sours. I'm not a sour guy. A beer. You want one particular beer?
How about an IPA?
An IPA there's one out of Louisiana. It's called, what is it? Ghost in the Machine, I believe.
It's in a bottle.
In the bottle. You know what?
The purple label. Yes, absolutely. It's
a
good beer.
Yeah, that is a beer and a half.
It is.
I would say that, of course, our local sponsor would also tell you for the podcast, our local sponsor down here is Line Creek Brewing. Okay. They make some great beers as well, if I didn't say, yeah, their beer is awesome. They'd be like, we listened to the show and you didn't talk about it. But if you're ever down here, I mean, their beers do make it up into the Atlanta area, but down here locally, if you're ever down in Peachtree City or Fayetteville, because they have 2 locations, they make some killer beer.
Awesome. Cool.
So, Darrin, if people want to hear your podcast or if they want to find out a little bit more about the co-working space, where can they find you?
Well, it's Launch and Go Workspace.com currently. Everything will be forwarded if they need to. So, but it's Launch and Go Workspace.com. The podcast is called Beer and Business. So we drink beer, but we talk about business. So
Sounds great.
It's not a podcast about beer. And that, if they want to Google us or find us out there on the interwebs, it's beer.business.
Nice.
That simple. So, and that's it, really. Thanks for asking that, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jamie, I know you guys, you've got a golf tournament that you put on annually and a handful of other fundraising events. How can people support the Special Needs Schools of Gwinnett?
Yeah, I mean, of course, visiting our website, specialneedschools.org, is sort of a good place. You know, I would say reach out to me. We'd love to have you over. It's, you know, if you generally know what's going on, it's easy to support, but you go over there and you see the school, see the kids. You know, the next question is, how can I help this? And so we'd love to get you over there to better understand what we're doing. We do our own golf event in August. We're working on a really cool event. We're going to have Lee Trevino coming into town in late June. So that'll be both sort of a really specialty golf experience, and then he'll be a keynote speaker at our first ever gala dinner. So if you are a golfer of any skill, you want to be around Lee. Lee's the absolute best. So we'll have some more information online about that. But yeah, just go to the website, reach out to me. I try to be around at a lot of things, particularly here in Gwinnett. So if it's a chamber function or anything like that, likely I'm floating around there somewhere. So come grab me. Would love to chat with you, share more, and if it's something that resonates, love to tell you more about it. There's some really cool, very tax-friendly ways. Actually profitable tax ways to give and support the school. So, would love to share all of that with you.
Absolutely. Yep. Dave and I are excited about the event in August and looking to get more involved as well. But
we appreciate you guys on many fronts.
Absolutely. Ditto. Well, thank you guys both for joining us on the show today. We really appreciate it. And so I guess we've made it to the end of this program, and if you have made it this far, you have gone and squandered a perfectly good half hour or 45 minutes at this point. And whether or not that's done you any good, we are grateful nevertheless. Be sure to join us for the live broadcast every month or whenever you feel like getting around to it. But if you missed the live broadcast, fear not. You can enjoy this groundbreaking work of media genius anytime by visiting businessradiox.com, selecting the Gwinnett studio, and then clicking on what's going on in there. We're also available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. So for my co-hosts, Dave Hollister and Sam Mitchell, our guests, Jamie Hamilton and Darrin Flanagan, I'm Stephen Tomlinson with Level 7, and you've been listening to What's Going On in There on Business Radio X.